Okay, so Lenin and the Bolsheviks, one of the first things they do, which this is a common practice of a country trying to form a communist state, is, you know how everyone's financially equal? That's kind of like what they're going for. We talked about that in the past. One way that a lot of countries that have attempted to do this in the past do it by dividing all the land up equally amongst the people so that everybody has a plot of land, and that's kind of how they make everyone financially equal. So they're dividing this land up by, for all the peasants in the country so that everyone has a little bit of land. And then the next move they're going to do is get out of World War I. Okay, so they signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk in March of 1918, which officially is going to pull them out of World War I. It was like a ceasefire peace treaty agreement with Germany and Austria-Hungary, but they did need to give a lot of land that was controlled by Russia over to Germany and Austria-Hungary, so they're going to lose a big chunk of their land, which is like today, like parts of the countries of Poland, Ukraine, Lithuania, places around there. This does upset a lot of Russians because if you were living in Russia in that part of the country, you no longer live in Russia anymore. So there is a lot of this does backfire a little bit on them because now there's going to be a lot of people who aren't supporting the new government that they created. But the people who did support communism, especially if you were working in a factory and weren't making very much money and had to work 14 hours a day, now they're getting a plot of land, so that makes some people happy. Okay.
Wait, who gets all land?
All people in Russia get their own piece of land.
And who's losing land?
What?
Russia's losing land and...
So, listen to me. Hey, face me and listen, Shay. Across the whole country, they're dividing the land up and giving it to the peasants.
Yeah.
However, the country gave some of their land up to Germany and Austria-Hungary so that they could surrender and get out of the World War I peacefully. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
What happened to the people that lived in the land that they gave up?
So this is one of the things that people say is unfair about communism. If before you owned a lot of land, your land is taken away.
Yes.
So that it's equal. You know what I'm saying? Yes.
Belong to the people who are now in the new country because it is lost.
Well, they could either immigrate back to Russia or live in the new country that they're part of.
Just stay where you're at.
Yeah. Okay. Can I move forward?
No.
Why?
Yes, we're ready.
Check.
Alright, so here's a map that shows you the land that they lost. So they lost actually a pretty big chunk of land.
Coach B, I missed something back there.
What?
You have to go back one.
Well, I'll go back at the end. Okay, this is going to spark the Russian Civil War. So now that the revolution's over and it's a communist government, those people who didn't support communism are now going to fight back. So it's divided into the Red Army, which is the communist army led by Lenin, and the White Army, which is anyone who does not support communism. Okay, so that would include people who want, like the old provisional government and the Duma back, people who want the Tsar to return to power. So it's a wide variety of people. Okay, here's a little map of the land that's controlled. This area in red is controlled by the Red Army, and then the area in like this yellowish color is controlled by the White Army. What advantage does the White Army have? It completely surrounds the Red Army. Okay, so the White Army does have a lot of experienced war generals, and they have good position by surrounding the Red Army. They also have a lot of aid from foreign nations. Who do you guys think maybe just from around the world would maybe want to stop Russia from becoming a communist
The
country?
USA.
The United States, Great Britain, lots of places that do not like, any place that does not like communism is actually going to send military supplies and then also soldiers. So there were Americans that died in the Russian Civil War as well. Yes?
Who are the people in the White Army?
So the White Army is anybody who does not support communism in Russia. So this is Russians who want the Tsar to return. This is even Americans and British or anybody who's any government who's trying to stop Russia from having communism is going to send support as well. And then also people in Russia who want things to return back to the way they were with the provisional government and have a Duma. So there's a lot of people that don't support communism. However, one problem that they do have is they're divided into 3 separate armies. Why is that a bad thing?
They can't like control maneuvers with like one separate, like central thing.
Right, so they're all all 3 of those armies are trying to do their own thing. There's not communication between them. They're not all on the same page. They're not making battle maneuvers where they'd all attack at the same time or anything like that. It was 3 separate armies with 3 separate leaders that are all kind of in the end of the day trying to end up becoming the leader of the country. So they didn't necessarily all support each other. The only thing that made them like each other in the short term was that idea of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? So even though if maybe they defeated the Red Army, they would then fight with each other in order to become the rulers of Russia. In the time being, they're all fighting against one common enemy, so they're allies, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, can I go forward?
Yup.
Yeah. Okay, the Red Army. Okay, the Red Army has really, really, really good leadership. And Lenin, and then the other general they have is Trotsky, is the guy's name. The 2 of them are really able to get people to follow them and motivate their soldiers to keep fighting. Okay, and they're completely unified as one army. So even though they don't have good positioning and they're surrounded, since they actually are unified, it's easier to make decisions and maneuvers and get themselves in position to where they could win battles. They also have the 2 biggest cities in Moscow, Petrograd, and 2 biggest cities in Russia. They have Petrograd and Moscow, so these are kind of the most important places to hold. And that also gives them control of most of the railroad lines, so they're connected both through leadership and physically. They can actually travel to one another, and also their generals were completely ruthless, and it kind of motivates the soldiers both by this idea that they all supported communism and they thought it would be a good thing for the country in the future, and also because they feared their leaders. So one thing Trotsky would do is he would go and with his personal guard stand in the back lines of the military, and if anyone tried to run away in battle, they'd get killed. So you could either fight and try to live and beat the White Army, or if you tried to run away, you'd get killed by your own generals. So it kind of set up this environment to where they were all motivated by a couple factors that made them keep fighting, which the White Army did not have. And they also fed their soldiers a lot of propaganda. What would this do for the motivation of the soldiers if they have to watch a lot of propaganda? Does anybody know?
Make them
Hate the other people, and what other things could it help them support? Communism or the mission of their army, right? They would make it seem like maybe it's a better thing than it would be. Can I move forward?
No.
Okay. This what's in red, okay, is the main reason why they won, because they were unified.
You know what we want?
What?
They want.
Yes. Sorry, spoiler alert. I ruined the end of the story.
That stinks.
Sorry about that. How about now?
Almost.
So I'm going to show you a piece of their propaganda here in a second. That will kind of give you an idea of some of the things. Okay, so here's one. The translation is Comrade Lenin cleanses the earth of filth. You could see like some of the different people. Okay, who's this guy look like?
Churchill.
Commissar.
Yeah. What board game does he look like he's
Monopoly.
from? He's like the Monopoly man. So it's like a rich business owner is the idea. These people are kings, right? That would be filth. Okay, who's this person?
It looks like a witch.
Yeah,
Is
Rasputin.
it- oh.
There you go. Okay, the results of the war, the Red Army wins. Okay, but all in all, 14 million Russians are killed. However, the big takeaway, okay, is that the Bolsheviks are here to stay, and that communism is what the future of Russia is going to be, and no one's going to stop it. So, even though, there was support from some of those Western countries like America and other countries across the world that did not support communism, they weren't willing to put forth the sacrifice to really stop the Soviet Union from forming. And because of that, there is going to be a major country in the world that practices communism, and that's going to be in Russia. So unless there's some sort of uprising in Russia in the next several years, they're going to be here to stay.
So there is.
No, the Soviet Union doesn't fall until the early 1990s.
Do they just like change the name of Russia?
Well, their like economy sunk through the ground, and because of that, they kind of lost control of the country. You know what I mean? Can I go forward now? No? Okay. Okay, you don't need to write this. After the war, just understand the population's still hungry. Okay, their economy's really bad. No one's really trading with them for a while. So that's still not really like a good condition. Alright, you do need to write this. So what Lenin does to try to fix this, what do you got?
Living reforms?
Yeah, Lenin reforms. Okay, so he's going to create something called the NEP, or the New Economic Policy, where basically he stops using the idea of communism where the government controls all the economy and everyone's all equal, and he lets the farmers sell any extra crops they have so that they can make like